Folks, the race for the Republican nomination is full steam ahead. The Iowa caucus weeded out Congresswoman Michele Bachmann and made Rick Santorum a credible contender, even though he lost just by 8 votes. Well, next up is New Hampshire, and we'll see who's in, who's leading, and who's out this week. But let's be real. Does any of this really matter to the majority of the African-American community? Most of us haven't identified with the Republican Party since the Depression era. And quite frankly, the Republican Party is generally not real African-American friendly. Here's what the hottest anybody but Mitt candidate, Rick Santorum, had to say about African-Americans and welfare.
Bottom line is, I don't want to make people's lives better by giving them somebody else's money. I want to give them the opportunity to go out and earn the money.
Here's an example of what Newt Gingrich thinks of the first African-American president.
President Obama is the most successful food stamp president in American history.
Even though there are more white people on food stamps than black folks, he is speaking certainly in code his supporters understand. And in case you doubt me, take a look at what Gingrich said on Thursday.
If the NAACP invites me, I'll go to their convention and talk about why the African-American community should demand paychecks and not be satisfied with food stamps.
Can you understand what they're talking about? I certainly can't. Hopefully, my next guest can explain what in the world they're talking about. He is the former head of the Republican National Committee, and we certainly welcome him back to Washington Watch MSNBC contributor and former Maryland Lieutenant Governor Michael Steele. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing very well.
First of all, let me deal with Rick Santorum first. His response or his defense was, no, I didn't say black people. I said blah people. I've never met the blah people. I've never met them. And so when you heard that response, what did you say?
I said it's a national campaign and people step in and out of it every moment of the day. Look, the reality.
Now, did you hear black? I mean,
I heard black. I heard black. But I understand. I think I understand what he was trying to say there, and the point is that what he's talking about is self-empowerment and how we can create an environment where individuals tap into their own resources and their own abilities, and they are able to take that and move those as goals towards the American dream. And so the idea of a redistributive society where I take from one and give to another through various means, whether it's a program, whether it's a policy, is not the way we're going to grow communities that have largely been underserved and, quite frankly, ill-served.
Right. I totally get that. But it's not like, first of all, the only black person in that room was a camera guy right behind him. And so the issue for me was, wait a minute, you're talking to a room full of white folks.
Well, and I think when you go back, you do listen to it. It is a little bit slurred. And I'll tell you why I think it was slurred. And I think what happened was, as the words were about to leave his mouth, he realized that, okay, statistically, he's in a state with 9% black population. An overwhelming
9% white population,
overwhelming number of folks who would be on welfare or would be a part of that redistributive system are white. So I can't narrow that so much to this portion of the population where the significant numbers are. And I think he kind of caught himself and he just came out blah, But I understood from a philosophical standpoint where Rick was coming from, and I know he wasn't saying anything, ill towards the black community or wrong. I think he was just trying to make the point that, as president, he wants an economy in which everyone is elevated. He's part of that Kempian part of our party that talks about a rising tide.
But when you hear him, when you hear Gingrich's comments, when you hear these kind of comments, do you get the sense that they are trying to, first of all, trying to push a certain button on the Republican side? I mean, what are they doing?
I don't think it's that. I just think it's part of a stereotyped view that is generally held by white politicians, period. Democrat or Republican, about the black community and how they feel they either need to address the concerns we have or the problems that we have, or how they feel, they'll get them to listen. We'll listen, because we're connecting, and you're not connecting really. You're really, a lot of black folks say, look, we're all not lumped into some group where, everybody is poor, everybody's on welfare, everybody's, a victim of crime. Like every other community in this country, we have those elements and those issues. So talk to us like you would talk to all that 91% in that room who are white. Talk to us the same way. If you want to talk about empowering me, tell me how you're going to do it. Don't carve out exceptions. Don't make it seem like you're going the extra mile. Mm-hmm. And that has always been a problem for the GOP. In fact, I'm writing a piece now for Ebony that'll be out in a few months about, black conservatism and the party struggle to try to make that conversation work. And my attitude is just relax. Come on shows like yours. Have the conversation directly to the community where you can talk to them about economics and
right.
national security.
I've even made that point to white Republicans that precisely we want to have the exact same conversation. Right. Talk to us about education. I said, look, don't come with that party of Lincoln crap. Talk to me about education. Talk to me about economics. Right. Talk about empowerment zones. Talk about small businesses. When you look at the growth of small businesses, black women, significant numbers. Have a same conversation. Right. But don't sit here and play down to me. Yep. I do want to ask you about this here. Sure. Voter ID laws. Yes. We see these all across. We've been hitting the whole issue of voter suppression quite some time. And Republicans have been saying, well, look, this is about voter fraud. Yeah, even when the Republican lawyers came out, they showed basically 350 or so voter fraud cases over
that were reported. And
right.
And I think that's a very important distinction to make. You have to understand, and having been in the voter side of this for a long, long time in terms of party politics, you have to understand the pressures that are felt by folks when they encounter a situation in a voting environment. In a lot of cases, you're outnumbered if you're a Republican, right, and so forth. There's less of a desire to report the fraud, and so there are many more instances that are being reported, and there are systemic problems in the system to begin with, and so I think that there's some good that can come from an overall review of voter laws around the country to make sure that everybody's vote is counted. I mean, it's like,
I get review. I get review.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is when you have the imposing of laws where, first of all, you talk about voter ID laws and that disproportionately affect senior citizens, African Americans. But that is voter ID laws. I'm also talking about like in Ohio, when you put in the bill that if you give a poll worker the option to tell somebody if they hit the wrong polling station, that I don't have to actually tell you what your new one is. So in the Ohio law, they literally passed it in the law, and luckily they got the signatures to put it on the ballot next year, so it's not in law right now. Right. That if Michael Steele walks in and says, I'm sorry, you hit the wrong polling station, the poll worker can say, okay, and turn around. You do, and you don't have to tell him.
And quite frankly, that's crazy. I mean, the whole idea, and again, this is a point I made when I was chairman of the state party and chairman of the national party. Why do we always put ourselves in a position where we look like we're anti-vote?
Right. In fact, I've been asking Republicans.
It's like it's the craziest thing. We want to be in a position where we're encouraging people to vote. On election day, I remember when running for the U.S. Senate, running for lieutenant governor, I made sure my team, when we went into the black community, to make sure, get out the vote. Now, I said to some folks, Stan and Star, I know you're not going to vote for me, but vote. That's the important thing. Make your case to the voters. You don't have to worry about how they're going to vote.
I push Republicans by saying, fine, give me an example where you're actually trying to broaden voting rights. And folks go, no, we're trying to protect the vote. I'm going, wait a minute. Explain to me how stopping early voting on Saturdays and Sundays makes sense. They're like, well, but I don't understand.
Stopping it doesn't make sense. How you monitor it and how you protect the voters and that vote does, and that's where the battle is going to be. Is more and more states. Oh, I think so.
40 states have passed some type of laws, and a lot of them are literally outlawing early voting on Saturdays and Sundays. And the opposition says you want to keep black churches and others from going in mass, but I don't get it. If we're talking about sending troops overseas for democracy, and then you are literally putting up roadblocks to voting, how in the world is that so-called American?
But did you make the very, very interesting point with that analogy? Because we have the same problem with the men and women we send overseas who can't have their votes necessarily counted, and that's a real big problem as well. So it doesn't necessarily boil down to race as much as it boils down to process and the outcome from that process, and both parties are genuinely concerned about what that process looks like.
All right, well, Michael, always glad to have you back.
It's good to be here,
look forward to it again.
Absolutely.
And tell the person who follows you, Rents Priebus, that he can can show up on the show. It's okay.
That ain't happening. Trust me. There are a lot of things I know won't happen in this life, and that's one of them.
Well, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.